the federal government in its bid to ensure a robust and well-equipped youth with entrepreneurial skills have empowered about 2,000 young Nigerians in skills acquisition training through the Abuja Enterprise Agency. The trainees are expected to contribute to the nation's GDP and employ others so as to reduce the unemployment rating of the country.
Helped me in starting my business. We're taught how to start our own businesses on our own. We can bring up our own studio, do some things, make up, and then we start gaining our own money on our own.
For me to be part of the training, so I learned a lot.
And the young people actually are beginning to show that they have capacity to make things happen. So with a good head start, with good mentoring, they will no longer search for jobs, but they will begin to work for themselves, having been empowered.
Trading on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange for the week ended Friday, 14th December, closed on a positive note. Here is the graphic representation of closing figures on the floor of the exchange.
Thank you very much, Kunle, for the business package. Mr. Parivio is next on Good Morning Nigeria. This is Parivia, Bayo base of the studios with us this morning for a review session. Bayo, good morning.
Good morning, Kingsley.
Good morning,
Joy. Good morning.
Hope you had a nice weekend.
Yes, the National Sports Festival was quite revealing and very refreshing too.
All right, very good. So let's begin with Joy.
All right, let's start by taking a look at the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Let's see stories making the headlines. The lead story there says, years after non-takeoff of Hyperdeck, NADEC, National Assembly set to create new commissions. And it says the National Assembly is set to create more development commissions, even though the existing ones are ineffective. Below that headline, you can see a picture story of the remains of former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Salihu Ibrahim, during the burial ceremony at the Commonwealth Military Cemetery in Kaduna yesterday. And beside the picture story, troops engage insurgents disguising as humanitarian workers in Borno State. You can get details of that story on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And 2019, no diaspora voting, INEC insists. Kingsley?
All right, let's take a look at the New Telegraph newspaper. Below the nameplate of New Telegraph newspaper, the story that Joy read, it's also there. It says, Boko Haram members disguised as IDPs attack soldiers. That's on page 9. And Senate panel raises concerns over looming fuel scarcity. Details can be found on page 4. Electricity consumers submit 262,096 complaints to NEC. That's the Electricity Regulatory Commission. And then the lead story for the paper comes with a double-decker headline, and it says, INEC raises the alarm over foreigners with voters' cards. You have 4 riders to that, and the stories are in greater detail on pages 2, 4, and 5. PDP, Buhari preparing to rig 2019 presidential election. APC, president's achievements enough to secure re-election. Clark, we won't tolerate election rigging. NGE to commission, that's Nigerian Guild of Editors, be loyal to Nigeria, not political parties. And also there it says, kidnappers abduct students, lecturer and others, demand 30 million naira ransom. Lecturers, how we escaped. A new device can detect.
Saturday, the army also is reported to have warded off attack by Boko Haram insurgents at Gulumbali. The other report is also about the police. The Inspector General of Police has ordered that all Inspector Generals of Police and Commissioners of Police to beef up security nationwide. The Inspector General of Police says that this is to carry out security threats assessment and to deploy police to flashpoints to ensure that all vulnerable areas are taken care of. The Inspector General of Police gave the order to prevent any crime, and particularly for policemen to beef up security and protect property and citizens during the Yuletide and New Year. However, there has been a concern also that policemen will be deployed to rally and campaign grounds, and they have enjoined political parties and their followers to adhere strictly to the electoral guideline, particularly election guideline 2010, as well as guideline by the Independent National Electoral Commission. Meanwhile, 2 female suspected robbers are reported to have engaged police in the gun battle at Ogidi in Anambra State. The suspects were operating at the hotel known as Paradise Hotel when the police arrived. The lady robbers locked up the hotel gate and engaged the policemen. One of the suspects was sustained injury in the buttocks from gunshot wound while trying to disarm one of the policemen. The police public relations officer for that state, Haruna Mohammed, says the suspects were arrested, but their accomplices have escaped. A pistol and some herbs suspected to be Indian hemp, as well as drugs, were recovered from them. Meanwhile, the President Muhammadu Buhari is 76 years today. He has been felicitated by many. Former President Goodluck Jonathan says, "Yours has been a life of great service to our dear nation. I wish you good health and more productive years as you continue to lead our nation with your skills and energy to the task of building Nigeria of our dream." Also, former military President General Ibrahim Babangida, in his statement, described President Muhammadu Buhari as an excellent role model to many young aspiring politicians, specifically former President Ibrahim Babangida says, because of his patriotism and commitment to service, the nation diligently, and leading the nation diligently with honesty and a sense of purpose. He says that you have achieved great successes in the fight against corruption, terrorism, and insecurity, in addition to getting our country out of recession. I congratulate you for all achievement, particularly for your humility, deep sense of honesty, and faith to have shown in governance as our president. So happy birthday to President Muhammadu Buhari.
Happy birthday to the president, and we wish him many more fruitful years ahead. Now let's go quickly to our editorial for today. It's taken from the Daily Sun newspaper, and it's captioned, "Posting of Treasury Officers to MDAs." In a bold move to boost higher revenue and accountability in key revenue-generating ministries, departments and agencies, MDAs, the federal government has approved the posting of Treasury officers to these agencies, where they will be designated as directors of revenues and investment departments. The move signals a major shift in revenue generation and management of resources of these agencies to ensure transparency and accountability. We applaud this bold step, which was revealed by the Accountant General of the Federation, Mr. Ahmed Idris, when he hosted the President and Council members of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICAN, in Abuja. According to the Accountant General, the measure is part of the ongoing restructuring of the functions of MDAs, which is aimed at ensuring that Treasury officers are assigned to various key revenue-generating agencies. Now, it appears the approval of Treasury officers to the MDAs is one of the measures envisaged by government to curb the lack of accountability on the remittance of revenues to the Federation account. It is not in dispute that little accountability exists in most MDAs in the country. It is in this regard that the Treasury officers should see their assignment as a national duty to restructure the functions of the key revenue agencies and restore public confidence in them.
Yes. Before I talk about the editorial, let's draw attention to the alarm raised by the Independent National Electoral Commission about foreigners, the ability to try and attempt to vote during the 2019 election. It is not only INEC that has raised this. The Nigerian Immigration Services raised this about a month ago, and when in Lagos they apprehended some foreigners that were having PVC.
How did they get the PVCs?
They say they have a system of identifying the foreigners, and at that point in time in Lagos, they said they have identified about 2,000 persons who had PVCs, and this had been seized. And these were immigrants from neighboring Benin Republic, Togo, and also in the far north, in the fringes of Niger, Chad. There are certain instances too, and that is what alarm the INEC is raising. And it behoves on the Customs, Immigration and Service, and all the security agencies to ensure that such persons do not have access to vote, even they have the PVC. The immigration luckily, they say they have a means of detecting and fishing them out. Now coming to the editorial. Joe, you've read substantially what the editorial is saying, and in a nutshell, it's happened on the new measure which the Accountant General of the Federation, Alhaji Ahmed Idris, pointed out during the function with ICANN. And particularly, if you recall, the NTA also had drew attention that there are short changes which the Federation account is suffering from non-remittances to the Federation account. One of such was the NNPC were required to have remitted about 8 trillion, which was outstanding, another 566 billion to Federation account. Now, by deploying Treasury officers to particularly ministries, department, agencies, especially those that are commercial and revenue generating, the Accountant General of Federation thinks that they will be able to directly tap from the resources and the revenue that are supposed to accrue to the Federation account, and all instances of pilfering or undercutting the federal government through not remitting such monies to the Federation account will be needed in the board. And so that is another pull step that will reinforce this Treasury single account that ensures that government monies get straight into government coffers.
All
right, Bayo, that's the most that we can take. We'd like to thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you, too.
See you again tomorrow.
Thank you, Bayo.
All right, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we're going to our discussion segment proper.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There's no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
In line with the vision of promoting probity, accountability and transparency in the management of public funds, the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation has unveiled Compendium on Fiscal Rectitude in Government Revenue and Expenditure.
The Treasury Journal that we've recently launched dwells largely on the operations of the Treasury, and in particular, the reform initiatives that we drive as the Treasury, namely the Treasury Single Account, the IPSAS implementation, the IPPS, and a host of others.
Very incisive and educating. Grab a copy of the Treasury Journal from your vendor and get abreast with financial transactions such as monthly allocations within the federal, state, and local government, Buhari's transformation policy on the Treasury, inroads to IGR, and many more mixed grilling stories. Remember, the Treasury Journal is a dependable ally for researchers, financial institutions, the academia, and policymakers. Treasury Journal, a fiscal rectitude in managing public funds.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Madam. Brought us as usual.
As usual.
For the three put.
You are welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah.
You take that one. You take that one. You don't understand? We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have.
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice. Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. to come to chocolate rice of made in Nigeria here. And see how it are made.
Correct.
How they are cook it. Homegrown rice are good for your health. It boosts our economy and give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Thank you for staying with us. Now, to kickstart our conversation on election security management, let's join Oyeyemi Ajayi for a background report.
As Nigerians approach the 2019 general elections, expectations are high that the exercise will be another time when Nigerians demonstrate their choice as to who will govern them. Just as the electorates are sieving through the candidates and making up their minds, the electoral umpire, INEC, is making every effort and plan to ensuring not just free, fair and credible elections, but one that is better than what was obtained in 2015. To achieve this, security is very paramount. This includes the security of lives of the voters, officials of the electoral body, as well as candidates and the election materials, which must be safeguarded and kept intact. Part of the efforts is the signing of the peace accord by the political parties and presidential candidates, promising to ensuring they will not heat up the polity by prevailing upon their supporters to abide by the rules of the game and avoid anything that can jeopardize the interest of the country. Taking the step further, the Office of the National Security Advisor to the President recently organized a workshop for security agencies on election security management, meant to prepare them for proper conduct before, during and after elections. It is worthy of note that the involvement of security agencies in the election process cannot be overemphasized, given the desperation of some politicians to win at all costs by the perpetration of electoral crimes such as snatching of ballot boxes, vote buying, disruption of elections, collusion and thuggery. Nigerians have already been assured by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, of its readiness to work with all the security agencies in ensuring a violent, free and credible election. One major question Nigerians will like to have answers to is if these actors will indeed practice what they preach by standing by their promises to work towards a peaceful election. What are the measures being put in place to ensure that the security agencies are mobilized and properly equipped to carry out their duties? How will they be monitored to avoid the situation where they compromise and take sides of candidates or parties that are desperate and can buy them? What is the role of the people in all this? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria are ready to answer these questions and more shortly.
Thank you very much, Oyemi Ajayi, for that backgrounder. We have with us in the studios a former Inspector General of Police who, in fact, was in office during the last general elections of 2015. Would like to welcome former IGP Suleiman Abba.
Thank you very much.
Our studios.
Glad to be here.
Okay. And then also here with us, regular face on Good Morning Nigeria, is a professor of criminology, Professor Etanibi Alemika. Is also a member of the Presidential Committee on Anti-Corruption. Professor Alemika, pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay. And joining us from our Lagos network studios is a former Assistant Inspector General of Police, and at various times as Commissioner of Police, of course, he was in charge of some states. Would like to welcome Bala Hassan to Good Morning Nigeria again.
All right, thank you all for joining us this morning for this very important discussion. I would like to start with former IGP Abba Suleiman. Here we are talking about election security. Let's start this way. How can we differentiate between election security and the normal daily security operations that we all know?
Well, thank you very much. Some of the important items with regards to the management of security in an election is the fact that the security agencies have to carry out what we call risk management, and this include identifying the threats to the integrity of that election. Unlike other incidents of crime that you deploy personnel on patrol, to prevent, as a deterrent, to prevent the commission of an offense, with regards to the conduct of elections, you carry out identification of persons, groups, and even the stakeholders themselves, that's the politicians, their followers, and so on, in identifying the extent to which they can be a threat to the conduct of the election. But I think most importantly, the provision of security of an election require the collaboration of all security agencies, particularly in a situation like our own, where the police do not have enough manpower to carry out that responsibility as provided in the Electoral Act. So it will require to bring in other security agencies and be able to sensitize them on what is expected of them in providing security, not only for the INEC officials and the materials, but also for those electorate who have the statutory right to cast their votes, as well as those who also do not have the interest, let me say, in conducting the election itself. So it's all encompassing security arrangement that requires the collaboration of all to ensure that the integrity of the election is not only maintained, but improved upon.
All right, you've talked about a couple of issues that we'd like to follow, but first, let's get to our other guests.
I think that we should also get the views of the retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Bala Hassan, who is in Lagos, to give us his own perspective on what makes election security management unique.
The protections of life and property, as provided in Section 4 of the Police Act, is the responsibility of the Nigerian Police Force. But then, elections are not things that are done every day. Just like Christmas comes once a year, election comes by and large once in every 4 years. So in the conduct of the election, the expectations from Nigerians, because these are not things that are regular features done every year or every month. Once in 4 years, there need to be a change of government or reinvigoration of the government in place. So elections, the expectations for Nigerians are very, very high when it comes to this 4-yearly election, as the case may be. So the election management in that case must be taken seriously, because expectations of Nigerians are high. Nigerians deserve to be protected at every level, either before the conduct of the election, in the process of the election, or also after the election in view of post-election violence. So expectations are high. All eyes are on Nigerian police are the major stakeholders. All other security agencies fall in place to assist Nigerian police in the maintenance of law and order.
All right, thank you very much, retired AIG Bala Hassan. We'll return to you. Let's now bring in Professor Etanibi Alemika. Professor Alemika, I would like you to take a historical view of things. Since the post-independence period that elections have been conducted in Nigeria, one cardinal feature has always been security breaches, manifesting, of course, in violence and all kinds of incidents that you can almost foretell whenever any round of general elections is approaching. Why has this lingered?
I think it's, I'm happy you are mentioning historical pattern. I think it has to do with the character of politics, what people want to get out of politics, how they practice politics, and the relation between politicians and the electorate. So if you take back to, if we say post-independence, in 1964 we had Western Region election. It was a lot of violence, which was then known as Operation Wete. In 1965 we had the federal election, again was marred by a lot of dispute. In 1983 we had a massive one in then the old Ondo state. In 2011 we had again a spectacular one, which we call post-election violence. These are just the spectacular incidents of violence. But election violence must not be taken in isolation. I think the attention we give to election violence or election security is a function of the level of security that we have on normal day in Nigeria. If you go to a normally peaceful society, there isn't too much mobilization for election security because there is already a state of security. So I think our peculiar politics, again, which is being depicted as zero-sum, in which if you win an election, you are transported to become almost a deity for the period of your reign. You exercise all powers with impunity, and you have access to the treasury to loot it the way you wanted. And so everybody wants to have a bite of this, and it becomes a war. So our politics is not competition as it's expected to be. It is actually a war, and the victor indeed vanquishes the loser. So it's the character of the politics that we're playing politics as war, not politics as competition of policies, of ideologies, and until we're able to change this context of politics, character of politics, and the profit of politics, we're going to continue to have challenges about election violence and difficulty in managing it.
So, Prof, what exactly is responsible for this character? Why do we have it going around in a vicious cycle?
It's because the citizen has not quite understood the importance of election to them. If they understand, for example, our constitution says that the sovereignty belongs to the people. If they understand that indeed the only way that they can use election to truly be citizens, not just, we come from a background where people say they have subjects. In a democracy, you do not have subjects, you have citizens. And citizens are equal. They're co-equal in a place. So in terms of election, if you recognize that, how do you translate sovereignty of the people in concrete terms? Election is one of the means by which you do that. And on election day, when we are talking about PVC card now, every Nigerian has only legal entitlement of one card. If you have two, you are a criminal, whether you are a president or a governor or whatever. So if the notion that we are equal ever makes sense at all,
because we know in reality we are not equal on many grounds. If it ever makes sense at all, it is in election where one man, one woman, one vote is indeed practiced. And it is only a mechanism by which you can also manage the people you have recruited to serve you. Election is a means of recruiting people. You are recruiting someone to be your president to do the job that we all should do for ourselves, but we can't have the time to do it together. It's not feasible. The legislators are people who have recruited. And it is only in politics in Nigeria that the people you recruit to work for you become your master. So if citizens recognize that election is a recruitment process, they will not sell their vote. They will not do things that will undermine their own power, that will undermine their own interests. But of course, politicians are very smart. They indeed manipulate the citizens, ensure that they do not properly understand the nature of politics and the strength of politics. And in the context, they are able to continue to enslave the people rather than being servants of the people. It requires a lot of enlightenment, voter education, and a lot of citizens themselves saying enough is enough. We are not going to be, made slave to people who indeed we have recruited to office to work for us. So it's a long-term process. Unfortunately, politicians use emotionally laden affinities, religion, ethnicity. These are emotionally laden affinities that, for an average person who wants to throw them in the open, they're no longer rational. And these are the things that people have used, cleverly by politicians to divide our people and to incite violence. Even when the violence is not that the people are paid for it, they simply say, these people have cheated us for long. And the person said they've cheated you for long has also been in power for long, and yet you have not benefited. Your poverty has not reduced. In fact, your family has been condemned to family of poverty while he's building a dynasty of rulers for himself.
All right, Professor Lemika, thank you very much. Let's return to the former Inspector General of Police, Suleiman Abba. Now, I'd like to take you back to the historical perspective. The instances of security breaches in elections are many. And one question that will arise is, the police, for instance, is the lead security agency in election matters. There are other agencies, but what lessons have the security agencies learned over the years to ensure that, listen, once we know that we're having another cycle of elections, crime prevention or all kinds of preventive measures are put in place to at least reduce the intensity of the criminality and other security breaches that we find to be always on the upswing with each cycle of election?
Thank you very much. I think with what Professor Elemika has said, it is very clear that, don't mind the fact that I'm a politician now, politicians seem to be solely responsible for putting in place actions that lead to violence in elections. And if you take a historical background, you will see that in almost all previous elections, perhaps until 2011, when we began to have a much more credible election in Nigeria, you will see that it is politicians who connive with the security agencies. And if you check the records of the observers, the reports of made by observers in previous elections, you will see that reports have been made, most of them credible anyway, that politicians connive with security agencies to either change the results or get involved in actions that will deny parties that are not in government, parties in opposition, from having maximum number of their followers to cast their elections. Now, with these records, That is why, let me talk about the election that I led the security agencies in managing, of course, the provision of security. In 2015, we realized that it was important for the police to take a look at this very, very important problem, particularly to the nation, and come out with deliberate arrangements where we can avoid them. While I was Assistant Inspector General of Police in 2013, I was made chairman of a committee that planned the arrangements for the security of the 2015 elections. Now, in the report of that committee, we recommended, and it was accepted, that police officers should be sensitized to know the importance and also make sure that they are impartial, they are non-partisan, and they are civil in carrying out their responsibilities with regards to the 2015 national elections. And as God will have it, by 2014, I was made Inspector General of Police. So I went into